Right, this is the Royal Enfield V-twin Model K engine that I've been working on, and I've had some fun and games with the main bearings and the big ends and so on. I'm just about ready to show you that the bottom end is ready for permanent reassembly. I've been trying it out. I'll just take this lot apart and we'll go through it all. There. Crankshaft out at the moment. Carefully. Right, here we are. We've got this, the timing side, which has got a new outer race for the main bearing, new rollers. The cage was reused, but it's got new rollers in there. And this spacer or washer is one that I've machined and made up. You can see the 8 little channels that I've filed in the face of it there. They're to allow the oil, which is fed to the big end from the main bearings on both sides, to get through past the main shaft and into this channel, which leads to a hole and onto the big ends. Both sides of the crank are like that. The big ends are fed from both sides. Also, I've machined this spacer, thrust washer, call it what you like, to be the right thickness to put the crankshaft right on the centre line. The conrods are right on the centre line of the crankcases, and then any clearance or end float issues were to be dealt with this one, which I've done. That's been in and out of the lathe a couple of times, and now we've got to a point where the crank will fit in the crankcases, all go back together, and there'll be absolutely no clearance or end float, but they don't bind either. So I know that the faces are all going to be not tight but firmly against each other, so that no oil will go where we don't want it to, and it will all go through the main bearings and into the big end. So I'm now going to put the crankshaft into the timing side crankcase. So it'll be located by the washer that I've got in there. That'll put it where I want it, relative to the centre line of the crankcase and the conrods. And then next, now when I put this together for keeps, I'll be oiling everything. Put this washer on there, and you can see where the oil will get through those little channels that I've filed from the main bearing. The main bearing is fed by splash through these 2 channels. There's holes into it. I've got an oil seal in there to stop the oil coming out on the drive side. So oil goes into the main bearing by, it's flung about and splashed, caught in the main bearing, oils that, and then from there it comes out through those channels and towards the big ends. So let's just place this drive side crankcase on. I've got this small metal washer here. Just fit them, just to sort of pin it all together. And now if I get the crankcases and stand them up, I'll just clamp them together, just to simulate them being bolted together. And another clamp on this side just to even out the pressure and make sure that they're clamped together nice and firmly and straight. There we are. Now they're as close together, those 2 cases are as close together as they would be with the nuts and bolts all fitted and tightened up basically. Bear in mind I'm also going to use some gasket sealant on the joint as well. And then we've got the crankshaft turning nice and freely and smoothly, and if I can demonstrate it, you may just have to take my word for it, but I'll try. has absolutely no side to side movement or end float, and yet the crank spins nice and freely, so I know that the crank's not going to clatter about from side to side, and a good positive strong oil feed to the big end bearings will be maintained. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to take it apart one last time now and apply some sealant to the joint faces of the crankcases, and this part, the engine, can be bolted together and I can move on to the next stage of the rebuild. So I'm very happy with how this has gone, and it'd be nice to finally move on to another phase of the rebuild.